Welcome to this too. I am your host, Timothy. Today, I'm not going to be speaking about my mental health journey specifically. I want to talk about the overall landscape of men's mental health in South Africa. It's June, which means it's Men's Mental Health Awareness for the month. And I just wanted to talk about the stats and some of the issues that men are facing and just try and highlight that in today's episode. So we are facing a bit of a silent pandemic crisis for men, I should say. But I'll dive into that shortly. So before we begin, let me just state in no uncertain terms, I am not a mental health practitioner. I'm not qualified in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply a man who has learned to navigate his own mental health landscape, using the tools around me, using the resources that I've been able to find. And I'm just trying to create a space where men can feel safe, where you might find something that can help you through your difficult moments and your challenges, so that you also know that whatever you are facing, this too shall pass. So let's talk about the state of mental health, the mental health crisis in South Africa. So there isn't any kind of real registry that we can draw on, but there are organizations like SADAG, which is the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, and Statistics South Africa, as well as the World Health Organization. And they paint a very dismal image of what the mental health crisis is like in South Africa. So of all the adults that have committed suicide in South Africa over the past year, men commit suicide at a higher rate, roughly 4 to 5 times higher than women. While women are more likely to be treated for non-fatal self-harm, men account for nearly 80% of all completed suicides. 80%. So that means there's a 4-to-1 ratio of men committing suicide successfully in this country. What we are finding, it's not just older men. The youth, the age groups 15 to 29 are the most at risk. Suicide stands firmly as the second leading cause of death for young people aged between 15 and 29 in South Africa, surpassed only by interpersonal violence and accidents. So, with kids in school, suicide accounts for roughly 9% of all teenage deaths in this country. Furthermore, studies show that 20% or 1 in 5 of high school learners have attempted suicide at least once. In the younger demographics, females report twice as many suicide attempts, but young males have a significantly higher rate of completed suicides due to using more violent and lethal means. The age group where the highest number of suicides occur is the group between 20 and 39. This is where the bulk of the cases are. It's the highest volume demographic for completed suicides in South Africa. And according to historical trends, validated by contemporary mental health data, nearly 2/3 of all suicide victims in South Africa are aged between 20 and 39. Now, this age also directly corresponds with the highest brackets of the country's youth and early career unemployment rates, which directly is influenced, by lack of jobs and job security. So financial anxiety and the inability to establish economic stability are cited by SADAG as some of the primary triggers for suicidal ideation in this bracket. Right? There's also lots of other emotional things that can be affecting you as a young man. You are still finding your way. You are still learning. I remember how debilitating it was when my first love was killed in a car accident, and all the conflicting feelings and everything that came as a result of that. And it was something I struggled to shake off for a long time. And that opened the door to my depression, I believe. I was diagnosed after her passing with depression, and I was put on medication. And I remember how difficult it was to speak about it, how completely alone and different I felt. Like, sometimes you tell yourself, nobody understands me, and nobody, no one's really going to understand what I'm going through, what I'm feeling. And that was really what I genuinely felt, because no one in the room, whatever room I was in, relate to what I was feeling. And that drove a sense of isolation for me and made it so much harder for me to get over it and to climb out of that hole. So it's really important to recognize the signs. It's really important to understand and to also to validate your feelings. Because, again, drawing on my personal experience, it's not necessarily what you think it is. A lot of anger that we feel is actually pain that's been bottled up and you know, it's been distilled, I suppose, and it becomes amplified. And the more you ignore it, the more you avoid it, the more you suppress it, the less control you have over those emotions when they do come out. And that's one of the main things that I've learned throughout, is that you've got to deal with the feelings as they come up. You have to acknowledge and deal with them. You cannot run from it. It's not going to change that in any way. And then, lastly, the demographic group, which is not really looked at or considered, but that's the group from 50 to 65, where there is a potential spike for more, and I don't want to say that flippantly, but there's possibility that that's going to be a group that's going to be impacted harder the more time goes on, because these are men that are experiencing social isolation, potential sudden financial ruin or lack of retirement security, and as coupled with physical deterioration. And I've seen men just give up. I've seen it in people that I've cared about, and it's, you know, when you mentally give up, when you mentally start allowing the negativity to govern everything, it doesn't take long before the physical follows. And we all have to be mindful of those that are vulnerable, and those that are vulnerable within our groups, within our friendship circles, not just age. If there's somebody that you haven't seen or spoken to in a while, check in on them. If there's somebody that's avoiding conversations, a friend of yours, just ask them how they're doing. Just let them know that there's somebody that's there for them. One of the worst feelings when you're suffering with depression, when you are battling something, when it feels like the entire world is against you, or you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, the worst feeling, or one of the worst things that you experience, is feeling like nobody cares, nobody notices, nobody is concerned about you. And all it takes is for one person to change that perception, for someone to say, I care, for you to show up for somebody that you care about. The change that you can bring to someone's life is immeasurable. And I know what it meant to me when I was going through my difficult periods. I'm by no means out of the water, but I know how it helped. I know what it did for me to be in a position where there were people that I knew I could rely on, that cared about me. And to be able to have somebody in your corner, to know that there's somebody there for you. It may not be the person that you wanted to be there. It may not be who you thought would show up for you, because that's also something that is really tragic, is that sometimes the people that you expect to be there for you abandon you. But there are people that will show up for you, but you have to be brave enough to speak. You have to be brave enough to open up and to give people the chance to help you. Help is a two-way street. Someone can't offer help unless you're willing and open to receiving it. And someone can't offer help unless you express a need for it. So with that, I just want to end things on hopefully a more positive note, is that if you are dealing with something, if you are feeling like your foundations are rocky because of what you're going through, firstly, I would say acknowledge that you are dealing with something. Be honest with yourself, and be honest when something is hurting. And then be brave and speak to somebody. Because keeping it in, who knows how it's going to metastasize inside you and come out. And so all I can ask is that if you are going through something, please reach out. There are many options available to us. There are avenues And what I would advise is that what you can do is you can try and reach out to organizations like SADAG. You can also reach out to Lifeline. These organizations are there for you 24/7. They offer help, and they don't shun anyone. They don't turn you away. And even though they are also, perhaps their resources are not as all-encompassing as they would like, there's always an avenue, and there's always somebody that cares. And I have made use of those services. I've made use of SADAG. So you can call SADAG on 0800 567 567. There's also Lifeline, which is 0861 322 322. So please call, please reach out. There are avenues available. I know that we don't always have access to the best healthcare, especially through government services. Things are slow. Bureaucracy sometimes causes the wheels to turn very slowly. But there are avenues. Like I said, SADAG and Lifeline have been avenues that I've used even when I haven't had the funds. So there's always an opportunity. There's always an avenue. You just have to be willing to take it. So with that, I will end, and I just wish everyone a very good week. Wish you strength. If you are dealing with something, I hope that today was better than yesterday, and I hope that tomorrow will be even better. And remember, whatever you are going through, whether good or bad in life, this too shall pass.